What's up, y'all? Welcome back to the Woman Be Healed podcast, the podcast all about acknowledging the opportunity to heal, harnessing the power of forgiveness by leaning on God and community. I'm your host, Rashonda Powell.
I don't care how much y'all get tired of it. I'ma say thank you every time, okay? First off, I'm just gonna tell y'all a little bit about what's been going on with me this week because I don't officially have an accountability partner, so to speak. So I'm gonna use this podcast as my accountability and this just being one of my trackers so I can look back and be like, yeah, I did that. So just to hear me say it, okay? I do keep a journal, a prayer journal, and my husband has been on me on the sneak with it. So that's a little bit of my accountability right there, but nothing official. So I'm gonna let this hold me accountable for what I've been doing this week, which is me working out, me eating better, me taking care of myself better, putting myself in things that hold me accountable for my faith and how I'm walking. I've joined an e-group. I've started volunteering within my church virtually. So those are some of the things that I've been really on myself about lately going into 2023. So yeah, if y'all want to be a part of my accountability, send me messages on Instagram that say "Go off, sis," and that's gonna be some more motivation for me to keep going to just my vision of being snatched and healthy, okay, and also just growing within my journey. So okay, enough about me and me celebrating my small steps, my small wins. Getting into today's episode, I know this may be a bit different than my normal episodes, but this week I was studying and reading Ruth, and even though Ruth is one of the shorter books in the Bible, it has so much substance in that one chapter that I had some moments of focus that I just kind of want to dig deeper into and really discuss this week. So, just a brief glance into this episode, I'm going to give some story time for the people that may have never heard about it or heard the story of Ruth. And then we're going to do this thing on what I found that's so dope about this particular book and related to our current standpoint, because that's what the Bible is. You know, it's the living word. So no matter how far we get in time or how far we get in life, the word can really relate to every area. There is nothing foreign to God, and through His word, He shows us that. But not getting off topic too much before I even get into the topic, let's go ahead and get into this episode. Okay, so there was this man named Elimelech, and Elimelech had a wife. Her name was Naomi, and he and Naomi had two sons. Their sons were Mahlon and Chilion. So Elimelech and his family were originally from Bethlehem, Judah, but decided to take the move to a city called Moab. In that city, her sons take wives, one named Ruth and one named Orpah. So while they're living in Moab, tragedy hits. Elimelech dies, leaves Naomi a widow. Sometime after, Naomi's sons also die, leaving Naomi not only a widow but also childless, and now leaving Ruth and Orpah widows as well. So it's just the women now. All three of them are alone together. And Naomi just feels broken at this point, a feeling that I never want to imagine or experience personally. So Naomi decides, I'm not going to continue living in Moab. I'm gonna go home. And she tells her daughters-in-law to go back home to live with your mothers. Both of them refuse at first. I'm sticking with you, Mom. Then Naomi's like, I don't have nothing for you. My sons are gone. And even if I were to get married today and get pregnant today, are you going to sit here and wait until my sons come of age for you to marry them? Nah, you better off going home. Go on now, get. So remember, this is my prayer phrase, y'all. All right, so Orpah, like, all right, Ma, if you say so. She kisses her mother-in-law and goes back home. But Ruth is like, yeah, Ma, you chatting right now. I said I'm staying. Where you go, I go. Where you live, I live. What God you serve, I serve. And that's on period. So Naomi's like, all right, girl, I ain't gonna fight you with I ain't gonna fight with you no more. That's what it is then. Okay, so boom. Naomi and Ruth travel back to Naomi's hometown, Bethlehem, Judah. And people are like happy to see Naomi and Ruth. They're like, I heard about you, you know? But Naomi is so broken, she doesn't even want to be called by her name anymore. So she tells everybody to start calling her Mora. Call me Mora because God ain't banging with me right now. He's taking everything from me. His face is against me. Don't call me such a beautiful name when I'm not feeling so peachy right now. All right. Okay, so they go on living in Bethlehem, Judah, but they gotta live, right? They gotta survive. So Ruth is like, "All right, Mom, we gotta eat. So I'm gonna go and glean in the fields." And just to stop, to glean means to basically gather the leftovers. So Ruth is gonna go into the fields after the harvesters go in and get what they're gonna get for the day, and she's literally gonna pick up what they may drop, the leftovers. Okay, so Ruth goes into the field and she's gleaning one day, doing her thing. But while she's doing her thing, the owner of the field, which was Boaz, takes notice of her. And he basically calls a servant while he's over there with her. And he's like, who's this woman? And they tell her, yo, Ruth, this is Ruth, the Moabite woman. So, and he tells Ruth, yeah, I heard about you. And I heard about your loyalty to your mother-in-law. Even after, all this happened, I respect that. And because I respect that, you come and glean here. Don't go to any other field. And when you get thirsty, you come over here and get something to drink. I got you. Basically, in a nutshell, is what Boaz tells Ruth. Then he tells her, your father-in-law was my cousin. So basically, she goes back to where Boaz stays. She eats there, and he sends Ruth back to Naomi with like an abundance of food, an abundance of like the barley or whatever that she's collecting. So when all is said and done, she goes back to Naomi, and Naomi's like shocked. What in the world, Ruth? Like, where did you get all this? How did you get like all this? Whose favor are you under? So Ruth begins to tell her about Boaz, and Naomi is like, that's I can, right? So Naomi comes up with this plan for Ruth because at this point she's recognizing that Ruth is loyal to her. Like, she's like, girl, if I don't do anything else, I'm gonna get you another husband. So listen to what I say. So boom, she gives her a plan to go to Boaz to basically save or redeem Ruth from being a widow and having to survive how widows survive. And Ruth obeys. So in the plan, she basically sends Ruth down to this what is it called, like the thresh floor or something like that, where Boaz is gonna be. And while she's carrying out the plan, when she's in the room with Boaz, he basically asked her who she is because she kind of startled him because she was like laying at his feet while he was asleep or whatever. So he's like, who are you? And she tells him. And he's like, girl, you ain't got no business being out here. Ain't no woman supposed to be down here on this threshold floor or whatever they call it. I know you're not that type of woman, but I agree with you that I'm your guardian redeemer, which is what they call basically the closest relative to widows. Basically, if they don't have a husband or if they don't have sons, it's basically the closest male kind of thing. So he's like, I know I'm your guardian redeemer, but listen, it's somebody in line that's closer to me in kinship that's also your guardian redeemer. So before me, so I'm gonna see what's up with him. If he's not willing, I got you. And he does this just that. He presents the offer to the dude that's closer in kinship to him, or whatever. But dude is like, if I take that offer, I might mess up my own estate. So I gotta respectfully decline my G. But you go ahead and buy it, which was the land along with Ruth. So Boaz steps up, buys the land, and he marries Ruth. And after he marries her, the first time they have intercourse or sex or whatever, God blesses Ruth with a baby. And they name that baby Obed. And Ruth is blessed with the blessing of she will be like Rachel and Leah. And Naomi, in the end of the book, Naomi is holding the baby and has this woman by her who tells her that this baby is going to bring you new life and will take care of you even in your old age. And girl, your daughter-in-law loves you and is better to you than seven sons. Y'all, I read the KJV, and sometimes that thing is hard as a mud to read. So I read it, and then if there's anything that I can't necessarily comprehend, I compare it to what other versions may say. But me just like really understanding it's me putting it into modern terms. So I hopefully y'all can follow along. Getting into the depth of what I really read, I've always had a struggle with the familiar, so to speak. Getting out of my comfort zone is like a big thing for me. Don't get me wrong, I love a new thing. I promise I love a new thing, but the process, it's always the process that really scares me. What happens in the in between, the unfamiliar, that's where I always get in my mind like, yeah, no, I don't think I can do this. But in the in between, there's this what if this happens or what if this doesn't happen? And this book was a book that really confronted me head on about those. And it confronted my fear of the what if happening, and then also the aftermath of it all. So I'm gonna explore this book from three sides, and those three sides are from the three women in the book: Naomi, Orpah, and Ruth. So, just to give a little background, in old times, women's status was determined by their roles, which was, wife, mother, mistress, whatever. And her husband was, of course, the lead. He supported her. He was responsible for basically all the public matters. So when or if the husband died, so did the wife's social status, whatever that may have been. So it was a fate of a married woman that they didn't want to have, which is, no married woman. I can't say that. Majority of married women do not want the fate of their husband dying. So within being a widow back in those biblical times, she didn't inherit the land of her husband. That was the duty of the closest male in the family on her husband's side to basically marry her and provide an heir if they didn't have one already, or her sons to provide for her if she had sons. So if they didn't have any of this, they were just alone, basically having to provide for themselves, just kind of winging it. And in the Bible, there are things where it characterizes these widows as like beggars, or these widows as often being exploited. So it was just not a fate that any woman would want, because their protector was gone. So knowing that, I'm going to explore these three sides of these women, which are just beasts in my eyes. So to stand up and to keep moving after losing their husbands and social economic status is just admirable anyway. Um, because there are just a lot of people that choose not to take that pressure and go a different route. And just looking at all three of these women, they all had two doors. The door of familiar with unfamiliar circumstances, and the door of total unknown. Naomi, exploring her point for just a few minutes. Naomi lost everything, like everything. She lost her husband, she lost her sons. And God knows I never want to experience the feeling of losing my baby or my children. But the feeling of having a husband, a good husband, is the feeling of having a rock, a protector, a confidant, a sense of security, a provider, a leader. It's just so much love. It's a piece of you. And, the Bible says when two are joined together in marriage, they become as one flesh. So to lose her husband was the loss of all these things. And to lose a child, I can't even speak on that, nor do I want to. Our children are literally from us. I can't even go into that. Naomi lost that. And to lose both children and a husband, Naomi felt like she wasn't even Naomi anymore, so much so that she said she didn't even want to be called that. She told everyone to call her Mora. She didn't even feel like herself. She wasn't herself. All her hope was gone. And she felt like the face of God was literally against her. And to tell the truth, I would too, because I felt like that with the circumstances that couldn't even match hers, couldn't even compare to the weight that Naomi may have felt in that time. So, Orpah and Ruth lost the same. They lost their husbands, they lost their homes that they were probably ready to, build on. They didn't even have a chance to have children. Naomi presented, both of them with the opportunity to go home. She opened that door for them, go back home to your parents. You guys have parents. I can't give you anything. And Orpah, she acts on that. She goes back to her parents. And in a sense, Naomi and Orpah are sort of alike. In the door of basically opening the door of familiar with unfamiliar circumstances. They went back home. They went back home to their hometowns, back to their parents' house, lacking their husbands. And while Naomi and Orpah's situations were totally different, Naomi in a sense where she had no male leadership, no financial support, no hope for, another husband, just like the comfort of another widow, which was her daughter-in-law, Ruth. Orpah was like in a light of going back to her father's house with support of her parents, totally starting, all the way over, repeating the cycle and, probably just praying that this time works out okay. They have these familiar circumstances of knowing where they're at, but in totally unfamiliar circumstances. So that's basically one door. We don't have a Where's Orpah Now story, but Orpah went back to a place where she had to face the fate of being a widow, but also back under the leadership of her father. So she had the potential of remarrying or the potentially figuring it out. Orpah probably was scared. Just in my sense, I feel like Orpah was scared of venturing into the new, but also she may have been hopeful that something would have come from the old. And that's understandable. And there are also times where going back to a place is necessary to birth new. And it's okay to start again. And that's what I look at when I get what I get from looking at Naomi. She went back to her old place. She went back to Bethlehem, Judah, a place of familiar. The people, the town, how you go out of town and you may use your GPS for everything. And then you come back in town and you just have this sense of familiar. I know where to turn here. I know the best chicken spot is here. I know not to go down here because either I'm going to have to come back out to my car with no tires, or I'm gonna have to carry something, be ready to fight. Naomi was going back home, a place she knew, but she was going without her husband, her children, her sense of security, her economic status. Naomi was going home feeling a feeling of nothingness and also bearing the actual physicality of having nothing. The only thing that felt familiar to her was knowing that she was in Bethlehem, Judah, and knowing that she had Ruth with her. But to Naomi, she didn't even feel like Naomi. She felt like Mara. So that one door is going back to familiar, within unfamiliar circumstances. But the other door is the door of the total unknown. And to view that door is to view Ruth, to view her standpoint. She's going back to a place that's not her home, a land she doesn't know. She has no male support. She has no finances, no leadership. She has taken on a whole new religion because Ruth is a Moabite. And at this point, she's taking care of her mother in law too, a mother in law that's also just as sad, or if not sadder than she is. So Ruth has this weight of her own self and some more. But Ruth is stepping out on faith and not familiar. Ruth is saying, I don't want to go back to my father's house. I want to see where this new road takes me, and I'm going to be loyal to my mother in law. Ruth is courageous. Ruth is accepting the change, even in the face of adversity. Ruth has, I'm going to do what I have to do attitude. I'm going to face the fate of a widow with my mother in law because, frankly, she needs me and maybe I need her too. We can be alone together. And Ruth wasn't looking for anything in return, but Ruth didn't allow her fear of the unknown to stop her from advancing in the face of unfamiliar. She wasn't even looking for comfort, she was just looking to persevere. And one of the things that I really admire about her was not only her loyalty and her sacrifice, but Ruth was obedient. And in Ruth's obedience was Ruth was seen and Ruth was heard and blessed. Ruth represents a pillar of strength and press forward through her obedience and her sacrifice. So, my question for you today is, what place are you in? Are you in a Ruth place? Do you have the doors ahead of you where you're feeling the pain of loss or opposition, where one is saying to go back to a place of familiar, or one that places you in a path of total discomfort, total unfamiliarity? And I also want to ask you these questions. Is going back to the familiar place only because you're scared? Is going back to that familiar place necessary? Is going to the unfamiliar place necessary? Is going to the unfamiliar place because you're running from something in your familiar place that has gotten uncomfortable for the moment? Have you sought God in your crossroads? And have you prayed for discernment? My main reason for this episode is to say that change isn't always bad. Change is necessary, so to speak. So even though the process may hurt and even though the process may get uncomfortable, things are going to be unfamiliar when change is necessary, when God needs to move, when God needs to stir things up. But also remember, pressure and pain are developmental tools. And please don't take this message as a message to say to stay in a place of pain and pressure where you've placed yourself. Like, we need to learn to recognize where pain and pressure ain't always from God, too. God is not telling you to stay in an abusive relationship or to stay in a place where you are willingly staying, where there's a place of escape and you weren't ordained to be in that place in the first place. Discernment, my girl. And I'm also not saying old things won't be missed either at times. And also, people can't be replaced. But know this, God is a restorer. He gives beauty for ashes. And people have a plan in life. So when the plan is finished, we celebrate their life and their plan and what we have learned from them and how they have impacted us, how their plan has impacted us, how we can make that plan great or sit in sorrow. God is so good at restoration that he uses things and or people that we least expect to aid in his plan too. At the end of Ruth, Naomi is holding her baby, her grandchild, they say it's her baby. And a woman says to her, "This baby is going to bring you new life and will take care of you even in your old age. And your daughter in law loves you and is better to you than 7 sons." And what that means is who you expected to save you in that situation couldn't. But God granted restoration in another way. God is still taking care of you. And no, we don't always know the reason, and death is one. I still can't place my finger on, the way people die, the why people die. That's not for us to understand either, though. But sometimes we got to push through that too, what we don't understand. Our trials are other people's testimonies. And baby, sometimes we just strong enough to handle it. It's not our will, but God's will. And this message, this episode is to say, I'm going to just put it in scripture form. Romans 5:3 says that we glory in our sufferings because we know that suffering produces perseverance, character, and character, hope. And hope does not put us to shame because God's love has been poured out into our hearts through Holy Spirit who's been given to us. James 5:11 says, "We count as blessed those who have persevered." Job persevered, and you see what the Lord finally brought about in him. The Lord is full of compassion and mercy. Another one that's not even a Bible verse is diamonds under pressure. Period. Change is necessary. Unfamiliar don't always feel good, but comfort don't produce change. Things have to get messy for us to realize that some things need to be tweaked. And just because something is working don't mean it can't get better. So today I'm praying for the ones who are at a crossroads, for the ones who are getting uncomfortable in what used to be their comfort zone, for the ones who are in their comfort zone but need to get moving, to get aligned in their calling and live fully and in abundance. And for each and every situation that we come across, the perseverance and the faith to move in the unfamiliar. I'm going to end with this. Isaiah 42:16. "I will lead the blind by ways they have not known. Along unfamiliar paths I will guide them. I will turn the darkness into light." Have you ever been in a place where you feel unfamiliar, uncomfortable, whether it's physically or mentally? Trust in the process. Trust in the mess that God will restore. Until next time, y'all.